Welcome to Search for Signs. My name is Gary Willing. If this information interests you, please press the like and subscribe button and press the bell for notifications. As you're undoubtedly aware of what's going on in the Middle East, it's on the news all the time now, right? With the assassination of the Iranian General Soleimani in Iraq, has of course ratcheted up the tensions around the world. And I even had some coworkers use the phrase the other day, World War III. Do you think this is the start of World War III? And I don't like the term fake news because I think it belittles journalism and journalists as a whole. And I do think that we need, as faulty as it is, we do need the news media to help keep our leaders accountable, but also to communicate with each other. And when we discredit them and we totally belittle them and make them to be a persona non grata, it really, you start to kind of wonder who to trust. Now, do I think that all the news media outlets have their own agenda? Yeah, they do, right? And their agenda is to sell ad space. It doesn't matter what political, side they have a tendency to lean toward. They're all about selling ad space. And when you propagate fear, of course, that helps to create, whether it's like I know in Georgia, anytime there's a threat of snow, they just go on and on about how bad the snowstorm is going to be, and usually we don't even see any snow. But they do it in order to what? Sell ad space, right? Because people are glued to their television to know the next thing that can happen with this snowstorm, right? Same thing with an international crisis or something like this, like what's going on. Now, do I think that it's going to start World War III? No. But it's very, very serious. The United States, the way that we act around the world, is not going to lead to any peace in the world. They're doing these things, they're attacking these countries and attacking these individuals and so forth, these terrorist cells and so forth, to create, quote unquote, more peace in the world, more stability. But it's not. It just creates more instability, more bloodshed, more war, costs more, those kind of things. And I have a tendency to, when it comes to politics and geopolitics, I like to play the devil's advocate, or even to put it in Christian terms, do unto others as you would have them do unto you, right? So I kind of I reverse the characters to see if it's something that I would support, right? So for instance, we went in, we saw this general that they suspected was plotting against the United States, and rather than just going in and arresting him, and then pulling him and then trying him in a court, they decided to send a drone strike into a sovereign country that wasn't even his country, in a very public place, and very brutally kill him. Maybe, probably doing a lot of property damage to the Baghdad airport, but definitely, putting other people's lives at risk, whether we killed anybody or injured anybody else in the process. Well, that is what it is. Now, you might be one of these red-blooded Americans that say, yeah, big deal. Well, imagine if in Boston, right? Because Boston's been known to have former IRA members, Irish Republican Army, right? Which are terrorists in England, right? Blew up stuff all the time in England back in the 80s and 90s and 70s, 80s and 90s and so forth. Imagine if the British government had evidence that there was a high-ranking IRA member trying to catch a plane in Logan Field in Boston, and sent a missile, into Boston Airport, blew up part of Boston Airport, put all these people's lives at risk, maybe kill people, maybe injure them, but big deal, right? Just to kill that person. Do you think that the people of the United States would stand by and idly just let that happen? Or if China, which is the biggest, producer around the world, saw Mexico as a threat to their production, and decided to attack facilities in Mexico in order to keep their power base as the top producer in the world. Do you think people in the United States would allow that to happen? And, I can answer that question, which is no, they would not, but I want you to answer it for yourself, especially if you believe in these kind of military actions like this. It doesn't create any kind of stability, and it never has. Jesus said 2,000 years ago, a tree is known by its fruit, right? Well, what's the end result of all these actions over the years? Nothing but more and more terrorism, more and more instability. It's sending the deficit through the roof, more bloodshed, the list goes on, and none of it is ever positive. But yet they keep the propaganda from the United States and the rhetoric from the United States is this will lead to peace. Now, Maitreya and the masters, but since Maitreya is the only one out open in the world right now, he's been saying over and over and over and over and over again, there's only one way to create peace. He puts it very simply, without sharing, there could be no justice. Without justice, there could be no peace. Without peace, there can be no future. That is the path to peace. There is no other choice for humanity. And if we don't create peace, any one of these wars could potentially escalate to a world war and cause all these nations to get involved. And then nuclear, there are a lot of countries with weapons of mass destruction. They would start using these against one another. And that would be the end of life on this planet. Now, the thing of it is that when people hear Maitreya's path to peace starts with sharing the world's resources, they get stuck right there and they say, oh, that sounds like communism. If you go back and you look at your history books or go back to Wikipedia and look up the Marshall Plan, when right after World War II, of course, Europe was in shambles. The United States, under the inspiration of the then Secretary of State, George C. Marshall, freely sent the excesses that we had in this country over to Western Europe to help rebuild their infrastructure and their economy. Once their economies and their infrastructure started to rebuild, they then started to have excesses of their own, and they sent back their excesses back to the United States in payment for what they were freely given, months earlier. The result of that, a tree is known by its fruit, right, was it rejuvenated the economies of Western Europe. It rejuvenated their infrastructures where you can't, if you were to go to Europe today, right, you would not be able to tell that there was a Great World War 80 years ago. Really, right? And it also created an economic boom in the United States. That was the end result of it. And it only happened for a very, very, very minimal amount of time. Maitreya is talking about this going on ongoingly around the world. It also, if you look at Germany, right? Well, I bet you if Germany had done what they did, or let me go back. If the United States took the same approach that we take with Iran and with North Korea, what they would have done with Germany right after World War II, they would have isolated Germany. It would have created more and more terrorist acts, more and more resentment from the German citizens, and it wouldn't be stable. But we sent them aid freely, just gave it to them, and helped rebuild West Germany at the time. And we trust Germany more than we did probably before the war. That's the end result of sharing the world's resources. That's what Maitreya is talking about. He's not talking about communism in the way that people view communism today, especially in this country. He's talking about sharing the world's resources. That's the only way to create peace. If we do not do this as a civilization, eventually we will not be here anymore. Maitreya is going to put it in front of the people of the world that this is the only future that we can. If we want a future, this is the only, we have to do this. There's no other choice. And so the United States has always been one of these just attack, and then wonder why people in countries are against us. And we don't have to live like this. And it's not utopian, it's not pie in the sky. Maitreya already knows that all we have to do is share the world's resources, and this will start to create peace and justice in the world. And then it will, we'll have a better future for ourselves, or actually a future for ourselves. So try reversing the roles and answer it honestly for yourself. Would we put up with something like that if another country attacked us in order to take out a terrorist against their country? Would they allow that? You know what I'm saying? No, of course not. And why would we expect Iraq to do that? Or if, I don't know, a high-ranking U.S. official, like Donald Rumsfeld, who was actually, the European court actually charged him with war crimes back when he was still in office. You know, imagine if they just sent somebody over here and killed him. You know, the Germans or the Europeans Union or something like this. Do you think that we would actually allow that to happen? What Trump did is exactly what the Democrats are saying he did. He took a match and threw it right into a box of dynamite, you know, and hopefully the match will go out before a fuse is lit, you know what I mean? But you just don't know. It's dangerous. Now, I know people get very, very emotionally upset when I talk about Trump, and I'm critical of Trump. I have to say again, I had an open mind when he started as president. Now I've actually pretty much made up my mind, but I gave him 3 years, you know, to turn it around, you know. But I see day after day after day, I see somebody that should not be the president of the United States. And I'm speaking out against my president, which is my right to do. It's a First Amendment right that I have. And you have the right to like him if that's your thing, right? Now, back in 2003, Maitreya was actually filmed in incognito, but he was filmed in a peace rally in Hyde Park. And the thing that he said, there was a few things that he said that just really moved me. But the one thing that he said, he goes, it does his heart good. He wouldn't trade it for $1 million. But he said to see all these young people marching to show up the lies. And he called Blair, he called him Blair instead of Blair. But the Bush and Blair administration, he said they were the new gods. And that's what he said. He called them, that's what people are viewing them as, the new gods. And if you look at Trump and you read the articles that are going on with Trump, people are talking, and even people have commented on my YouTube page about how they think he has been sent by God himself. Now, I'm not anybody's moral judge, but I definitely get heated when people are very hypocritical, you know. And here's a man who, it's his right to do this, had an affair with a porn star, Stormy Daniels, turned around and paid her several $100,000 to keep her mouth shut right before the election because he thought it would hurt his election chances. All the shady business deals that he did, all the lies that he used to talk about, you know, all the times he would go on the air and claim to be somebody else, talking about himself to help trump up, no pun intended, you know, his business dealings. All the things that he did, and he continues to do this over and over and over again. You know, and there was just a video that was surfaced this last week where he was being interviewed by Wolf Blitzer on CNN. And he was talking, you know, obviously you can check it out on YouTube, but he was talking about how he liked Nancy Pelosi. He was surprised that she didn't try to impeach Bush because he lied and said there was weapons of mass destruction in Iraq when there weren't, to get us into the war. And I actually agree with him. I think that she should have impeached him because he did lie to get us in there. There was no weapons of mass destruction. But then he turns around and he does the exact same thing himself. The motives of this action are very, very questionable indeed, given the fact that his trial is about to start. He's always been a deflector. When people get too close to him and start really riling him up and pushing his buttons, he starts to pass it off on other people and deflect and call them names and attack them instead. And he says he does this. So it's not psychoanalyzing the guy. He actually says that he does this, you know? So why people are listening to him now it boggles my mind. But he is, as Maitreya said about Bush and the former Prime Minister Blair of the UK, he is the new God. And people are treating him as such. And you talk about worshiping a false idol, you know? That's exactly what people are doing today with Trump. And their eyes aren't open at all to what he's doing. But he has totally set the United States on a course that could lead us to destruction. Hopefully it won't. But we as a people have to wake up. There's not a lot of time left. And Christian, Buddhist, Muslim, atheist, agnostic, whatever, we all have to stand up for peace. It is the most important thing that we can do today. And it has to start with sharing the world's resources. Thank you. Remember to take action and help SOP save our planet. Thanks for listening, and we look forward to talking to you again in future videos.